Hi TCA families. Today I'm going to talk about Explode the Code Book 4. Book 4 in Explode the Code is my favorite, and I'm actually going to walk through my favorite lesson in Explode the Code Book 4 as well. Book 4 is so extremely important because this is the introduction to syllables. Most of the words that we speak in English are multi-syllable words, and so this is extremely crucial information. Book 4 has just this amazing amount of information that happens in it. So it is extremely important to take your time with Book 4. Make sure the concepts are mastered before you move on. Take time with the things that your student needs, or go fast through the things that they totally have. I'm going to start here with my teacher's edition. This is the teacher's guide for books 3 and 4. So book 4 is about halfway through. I'm going to start by telling you that in book 4, the lessons follow a similar pattern to the previous book. So if you've seen any of the other videos, you'll know that there's multiple components. You're going to do some kind of quick review that's found in the teacher's guide only, not in the student edition. So you're going to make sure you have this handy. You're also going to do some sort of phonemic or phonological awareness, which again can happen totally in the dark. So separate from any kind of letter or print. It's all activities that have to do with your ears and that students can do in their head. And then you're going to have some specific phonics instruction based on a specific skill, and those will correlate to the pages in the student edition of book 4. But most of the teaching actually happens in the teacher's guide and is separate from the student edition, so make sure that you have this handy through your teaching. There is one lesson in book 4, Explode the Code, that follows a really different pattern, and so I want to make sure that I go over that lesson with you today. It is lesson 6 in Explode the Code, book 4, and it's actually one of the most important lessons, but it's really easy to gloss over if you're not sure about the underlying skills. So let's walk through lesson 6 in book 4. I'm going to start with my teacher's guide, and that is on page 47. And it's going to start where usually it starts with a quick review. It's going to start with links to prior knowledge, and this is just really general, really quick. You're just going to tell your student, we've been talking about syllables. We've been talking about different kinds of syllables. We've been talking about how groups of sounds in a word are called syllables. We've just really been introducing that concept. And today we're going to talk about 2 syllable types, open and closed. And most syllables in the English language are either open or closed. So you can see how important this lesson is. The next section is phonological awareness, and you're going to talk about when a syllable ends with a vowel sound, such as in the word no, it is an open syllable. And you're also going to introduce closed syllables, or when the vowel is in the middle of 2 consonants or before a consonant and it makes a short sound. I know that was a lot of information in one sentence. I'm going to break that down a little bit more. You're basically introducing the concept here of listening to what the vowel is doing to help you determine what kind of syllable type it is. Let me move on to the student edition here so that I can show you with visuals. This right here is the page where you're going to use to do your direct instruction. So this is going to actually define for students what an open syllable is and what a closed syllable is. For example, here they have do, re, mi. Each of those vowels is making their long sound or saying their name. O, do, re, mi. These are open syllables. When a syllable ends with a vowel, it's an open syllable, like in do, re, and mi. I talk about this like a sandwich, by the way. If a sandwich is an open-faced sandwich, it has a vowel hanging out at the end, it's probably an open syllable, and it's going to say its name. A sandwich usually has 2 pieces of bread, though, and if the vowel is in the middle of consonants, so hum, him, hum, these are closed syllables, and the vowel makes its short sound. I often rip out this page and hang it up and keep it somewhere visual as I go through the next work pages so that they have this to refer to. Now, I want to caution you a little bit on these next pages because I'm a real advocate for skipping pages through Explode the Code, but I would not skip any pages in this particular lesson because they are all really valuable and have a lot of good information in them, and these are difficult concepts for students to master. But it is misleading if you're looking at the student edition because these words are easy. These words are easy, and so you may think, oh, they know how to do that, and so I'm going to move on. Resist the urge to do that because these are really big skills. So these are simple words, CVC words, which they probably mastered back in book 1. But what you're doing in this activity is trying to get them to pay attention to what the vowel sound is doing. For example, in this first one, met, Met is a closed syllable because that vowel is making its short sound and it has a consonant at the end. In this case, they're supposed to give the guy here a closed mouth to indicate closed syllable. Over here we have he. Now they know how to read that word, but this activity isn't about that. It's about identifying what the vowel sound is doing. So you would say he. Is that vowel saying its short sound or its long sound? And they should be able to tell you the difference by this point in Explode the Code. And if it is saying its long sound, it is an open syllable and they're going to give it an open mouth. Now I would do the first several of these with your student. I have found lots of students really struggle with this concept. In fact, if you have a third or fourth grader who's just maybe started to show some signs of struggling with reading, it's probably this skill that you need to work on. And so I would do several of them with them, make sure that they're really hearing the sounds and understanding the concept, and then let them become independent further down the page. Okay? The next page is that they're actually going to code some of the vowels. So here we have ob. These words are not real words. They're make-believe. And that's really important because syllables, when we break them apart, are not real words most of the time. So they need to be able to read these correctly using their knowledge of open and closed syllables from the previous page. So ob, they would give that the short code there, and then spo, they would give that the long code, and basically they need to identify what the vowel is doing in each of these nonsense words or syllables. Now, that's it. That's all the work pages in Lesson 6. You might want to take your time through this. You might want to go back to the teacher's guide and review some of the additional ways to teach this concept. So for example, in the fluency, comprehension, writing, or differentiated instruction sections, there's lots of additional ways that you can teach this if you're finding your students struggling. But the other thing to know is that this concept is taught again in Lesson 7 and Lesson 8, and I think even Lesson 9. So it's revisited. They're not expected to master this concept in Lesson 6. It's going to be revisited, and that's because this is an extremely important part of reading and writing in English and learning to read and write multisyllable words. And so that is Lesson 6 of Explode the Code, Book 4. Book 4 is extremely important. This is really where they start to learn how to decode multisyllable words. The rest of Explode the Code, Books 5, 6, 7, and 8, are going to expand on what they learn here and introduce some more complex spelling patterns. But Book 4, extremely important. Make sure you reach out to your ES or your conference teacher if you're struggling with this at all. Make sure that you stay diligent. Don't move on until they've mastered a concept. If they need more time on something, take more time. And if you have any questions, of course, reach out to your conference teacher.